written that the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles through you. The former says it is God's people who are blaspheming, while the latter attributes it to David. 12. Romans 10:11 says, Scripture saith, whoever believes on him shall not be ashamed, unquote. Even though there's no such statement in the Old Testament. Isaiah 28:16, Jeremiah 17:7, and Joel 2:32 just don't apply. 13th, 1 Timothy 1:18 says, this charge I commit unto thee, son Timothy, according to the prophecies which went before upon thee, or on thee, unquote. There are no Old Testament prophecies pertaining to Timothy. 14th and lastly, James 4:5 says, do you think the Scripture saith in vain, the Spirit that dwells in us lusts to envy, unquote? No such statement can be found in the Old Testament. Although apologists occasionally try to use Genesis 6:5, 6:11, 8:21, Proverbs 21:10, and Ecclesiastes 4:4. That completes our list of non-quotes and clearly shows biblical writers occasionally manufactured verses out of thin air when they felt the need. In sum and substance, that concludes our two-program discussion showing an incredible amount of evidence exists to prove that New Testament writers misquoted, misinterpreted, twisted, distorted, perverted, misapplied, and misunderstood a tremendous number of Old Testament verses. They even went so far as to concoct Old Testament verses that don't even exist. Anyone looking for fair, objective scholarship in the field of biblical apologetics has embarked upon a journey into the realm of myth and fantasy, in which people not only operate on expediency, but generate the non-existent. Nothing is so biased as someone whose hope precedes his head, whose desire precedes his discretion, and whose wish precedes his wisdom. We can now proceed to the next part of our program, which involves discussing a very good pamphlet. Having obtained permission from Dan Barker of the Freedom From Religion Foundation, we'd like to cite the following abbreviated version of his pamphlet entitled, Why Jesus? Dan's a former fundamentalist minister who's quite knowledgeable with respect to Scripture, and he provides chapter and verse to back up many of his points. Because fundamentalists and evangelicals have been talking incessantly in recent years about the importance of Jesus as a role model in maintaining family values, Dan's analysis is more relevant than ever. He states, quote, this is Dan speaking, Jesus has been held in high regard by Christians and non-Christians alike. Regardless of whether or not he existed in history or whether or not he was divine, many have asserted that the New Testament Christ character was the highest example of moral living. Many believe his teachings, if truly understood and followed, would make this a better world. Is this true? Does Jesus merit the widespread adoration he has received? Let's look at what he said and did. What were some of his views on equality and social justice? Well, to begin with, he encouraged the beating of slaves in Luke 12:47, which says, and that servant, read this as slave, which knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes, unquote. Jesus never denounced servitude. but quite the contrary, incorporated the master-slave relationship into many of his parables. He did nothing to alleviate poverty. Rather than sell some expensive anointment to help the poor, Jesus wasted it on himself, saying, "Ye have the poor with you always." Mark 14:7. No women were chosen as the disciples of Jesus, or the apostles for that matter, or invited to the Last Supper. Moving on, he wasn't peaceful and compassionate. The birth of Jesus was heralded with peace on earth. Yet Jesus said, "Think not that I am come to send peace. I came not to send peace, but a sword." Matthew 10:34. He that hath no sword, let him sell his garment and buy one. Luke 22:36. "But those mine enemies who would not that I should reign over them, bring hither, and slay them before me." Luke 19:27. The burning of unbelievers during the Inquisition was based upon the words of Jesus in a parable. Quote, "If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth, and men gather them, and cast them into the fire, and they are burned." Unquote. Jesus looked at his disciples with anger, Mark 3:5, and attacked merchants with a whip, John 2:15. He showed his respect for life by drowning innocent animals, Matthew 8:32, and he refused to heal a sick child until pressured by the mother, Matthew 15:22-28. The most revealing aspect of his character was his promotion of eternal torment. He said, "The Son of Man," of course speaking of himself, "shall send forth his angels, and shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and those who do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth." Matthew 13:41-42. And in Mark 9:43 he says, "If thy hand offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed, than having two hands to go into hell, into the fire that shall never be quenched." Unquote. Is this nice? Is it exemplary to make your point with threats of violence? Is hell a kind and peaceful idea? Jesus was not a good example because he irrationally cursed a fig tree for being fruitless out of season. Matthew 21:18-19. He broke the law by stealing corn on the Sabbath. Mark 2:23. And he encouraged his disciples to take a horse without asking the owner's permission. Matthew 21. The humble Jesus said that he was greater than the temple. Matthew 12:6. Greater than Jonah. Matthew 12:41. And greater than Solomon. Matthew 12:42. He appeared to suffer from a dictator's paranoia when he said, he that's not with me is against me. Matthew 12:30. Dan continues, Jesus certainly didn't promote family values, as is proven by the following quotations. "If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and his sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple." Luke 14:26. "I came to set man at variance with his father, and his daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household."